Your opinion doesn't matter. Adam Stone's voice echoed across the conference room, sending a ripple of tension through the air. Aaliyah Thomas, sitting at the far end of the sleek, glass-topped table, didn't flinch. Her dark eyes locked onto his, her back straight, the silence between them thick with the weight of his dismissal. She had seen this before. The rich, the powerful, dismissing her as if her words held no value. But today was different. She was different. If you don't take this seriously, you'll lose more than just this meeting, she said calmly, but firmly, her voice steady. The room fell deathly quiet as every pair of eyes turned toward her. Adam Stone, the CEO of one of the most successful corporations in the country, regarded her coldly. A black woman, a junior analyst. Who did he think she was to question him? The nerve. We've heard enough from you, he scoffed, dismissing her as if she were a minor inconvenience. Aaliyah's heart raced, but her expression remained unchanged. She had worked too hard to let someone like him crush her. She wasn't about to back down now. You're making a mistake, she said, more to herself than to him, but loud enough for the room to hear. The tension in the room grew palpable as everyone exchanged uneasy glances. Adam Stone shifted in his chair, his smirk never wavering, but his eyes now narrowed. The seconds stretched, each one feeling longer than the last. Aaliyah had said enough for now. She knew what came next. The CEO had dismissed her, but her words had already planted a seed of doubt in the minds of the others. It wasn't over. As the meeting ended and the room slowly emptied, Aaliyah sat there, taking a deep breath. The fight was just beginning. She had to speak with someone who would listen, someone who mattered. Liam Parker, a member of the board, was the key. She found him alone in the hallway, his hands tucked into the pockets of his suit jacket. Liam, Aaliyah began, her voice low and calm. If you continue with the CEO's strategy, this company will lose 25% in stock value next quarter. I know you don't want that. You need to act now before it's too late. Liam raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. What makes you think I'd listen to you? He asked, crossing his arms. Because I'm the only one here who sees the truth, Aaliyah replied, her tone unwavering. If you don't act, the damage will be irreversible. Liam looked at her for a moment longer than necessary, his brow furrowed in thought. Slowly he nodded. I'll see what I can do. The next day, the boardroom buzzed with murmurs as the meeting began. Adam Stone, confident as ever, began speaking, but his words were drowned out by an unexpected turn of events. Liam Parker stood, interrupting the CEO. I think we need to reevaluate the proposed strategy, Liam said, his voice calm but firm. Adam's eyes flicked to Liam in disbelief. What are you talking about? He snapped. This is a waste of time. No, Liam said. Aaliyah was right. If we follow through with this plan, we'll face major losses. I'm not willing to risk this company's future. Adam Stone's face reddened, his fists clenched at his sides. You're making a mistake, Liam. But Liam wasn't backing down. The board members, once silent, began murmuring in agreement. The tide was turning, and Adam Stone could do nothing but watch as his empire began to crumble around him. Aaliyah Thomas, the woman he had dismissed so easily, had just won. She didn't need to say a word. The truth had already spoken for her. The following day, the atmosphere in the boardroom was tense, but a shift had already begun. Adam Stone walked in, his confident stride betraying none of the unease bubbling beneath the surface. He was the CEO, after all. No one could challenge his decisions. Or so he thought. As he settled into his seat, he noticed that something felt different. The usual silence from the board members was replaced by murmurs. Liam Parker, the one person he trusted to back him, was standing at the front of the room. Before we move forward, I think we need to revisit the proposal, Liam said, his voice calm, but carrying a weight Adam hadn't expected. Adam blinked, momentarily taken aback. What are you talking about, Liam? He asked, his tone sharp, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. Liam turned to the rest of the board, his gaze steady. Aaliyah was right. If we continue with this strategy, we're looking at a 25% drop in stock value by next quarter. We can't afford to ignore that. Adam's face flushed with anger, his grip tightening on the armrests of his chair. He wasn't used to being questioned, let alone by someone on his own team. This is absurd, Adam muttered, but Liam didn't back down. I trust Aaliyah's analysis. This plan is flawed. I'm not willing to take the risk. There was a moment of silence as the room absorbed the weight of Liam's words. Slowly, the rest of the board members began nodding, murmuring their agreement. Adam's usual confidence faltered. His empire, built on his ability to control everything, was slipping through his fingers. He had underestimated Aaliyah, and now, his own board was turning against him. The next few minutes felt like hours to Adam. He tried to rally, to assert his dominance, but the board had already made up their minds. One by one, they voted to reject his proposal, siding with Aaliyah's plan instead. Adam's jaw clenched as he looked around the room, his eyes landing on Aaliyah for the first time since the meeting had begun. She wasn't gloating, wasn't trying to prove a point. She simply sat there, calm and composed, as if she had known all along that this would happen. Her quiet victory was a stark contrast to the chaos in Adam's mind. His entire career had been about power and control, but now he was losing both in the blink of an eye. He had been so sure of himself, so convinced that his word was law, that he had dismissed Aaliyah without a second thought. Now, his own actions had led to his downfall. The room was filled with the soft hum of murmurs, but Adam remained still. He could feel his grip on his position slipping away. His empire was crumbling, and it wasn't because of anything external. It was because of his own arrogance. As the meeting came to a close, Adam stood up, his movements stiff with frustration. He couldn't believe what had just happened. He had been bested by a junior analyst, a black woman no less. But as he walked out of the room, his head held high, a seed of doubt had been planted in his mind. Could he still hold on to his power? Or had Aaliyah just changed everything? The next morning, Aaliyah arrived at the office earlier than usual, walking through the building's sleek lobby with a calm resolve. As she entered the elevator, she couldn't help but feel a shift in the air. The whispers that had followed her for months were quieter now, replaced with subtle glances and nods of recognition. She had done it. She had not only stood her ground, but also changed the direction of the company. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped into the familiar, sterile conference room. The table was already set for the next meeting. As she sat down, she noticed that some of the board members had arrived early, and they were talking amongst themselves in hushed tones. Adam Stone was not among them, though. Aaliyah wondered how he was processing everything. Would he try to salvage his position, or had he already begun to plot his next move? The thought didn't bother her. She had no intention of backing down. The meeting began, and Aaliyah could feel the weight of every eye on her. Adam walked in moments later, his expression unreadable. He paused for a second at the door, his gaze sweeping the room before he finally took his seat. It was clear, he had not expected this. "I want to thank everyone for their time today," Adam began, his voice strained but still authoritative. "However, I must say that I still disagree with the recent decision. The changes suggested by Aaliyah are drastic and risky." Aaliyah kept her eyes on him, her hands folded neatly in front of her. She had prepared for this. "I understand your concerns," she said, her voice steady and clear. "But the reality is that without these changes, the company is facing a significant downturn. We can't afford to ignore the numbers." Adam's eyes flickered, a moment of uncertainty passing through him before his usual confidence resurfaced. "I still believe that we should take a more cautious approach," he said, his tone dismissive. Aaliyah didn't flinch. She leaned forward slightly, looking directly at him. "The company doesn't have the luxury of caution, Adam. You've led us to the brink of failure. I'm here to make sure we survive." There was a long pause. The room was silent, everyone waiting for Adam's response. The tension was palpable, but this time, it wasn't Aaliyah who was on the defensive. Adam's face was red, his jaw clenched tightly. For the first time, Aaliyah saw a crack in his armor. He had been too focused on power, too sure of his control. But now, it was slipping away. "You've overstepped your boundaries, Aaliyah," Adam finally said, his voice low but threatening. "You should remember your place." Aaliyah didn't blink. "I am in my place," she replied, her tone unwavering. "This company needs someone who can see the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is." The room went still as Adam processed her words. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Liam Parker stood up. "I think it's time we voted," Liam said, his voice firm, drawing the attention of the room. "It's clear that the board has already made its decision." Adam looked from Liam to Aaliyah and back again. He could see it now, the shift, the irreversible change. The board was no longer his to control. With a defeated sigh, he nodded. Fine, he said quietly, taking his seat. The vote was quick. Every single board member voted in favor of Aaliyah's plan. Adam Stone's grip on the company had officially been broken. As the meeting concluded and the room slowly emptied, Aaliyah remained seated for a moment longer. The quiet victory felt surreal. She had just toppled a titan, and all it took was believing in herself and standing firm. She knew there would be more battles ahead, but for now, she had won. Adam Stone had been defeated, and she had earned her place, not just in the company, but in the hearts and minds of everyone who had doubted her. In the following weeks, the dynamics within the company continued to shift. Aaliyah's new role as the head of the financial strategy team brought with it a sense of responsibility she had never fully experienced before. She sat at her desk, reviewing the numbers for the next quarter, her mind racing through the calculations and projections. The company's survival, its future, rested in her hands now. Adam Stone, once the unchallenged king of the company, had taken a back seat, his influence waning with each passing day. Aaliyah's decisions were now being heard and respected, but she couldn't afford to become complacent. The pressure to deliver weighed heavily on her. She had beaten the odds once, but she knew the real challenge was yet to come. It wasn't just about proving she was right anymore. It was about keeping the company on course and ensuring that those who had supported her were not disappointed. One afternoon, she sat in a meeting with Liam Parker and several other senior executives. The discussion was tense, focused on the new direction the company was taking under her leadership. Aaliyah, Liam said, leaning forward, you've done well so far, but we need to start looking at the long-term impact of these decisions. We're in uncharted territory now. Aaliyah nodded, her mind focused. I know, she replied, but the data speaks for itself. If we keep moving forward with the plan I've outlined, we can double our profit margin in the next year. Liam raised an eyebrow. Doubling profits? That's ambitious. It's achievable, Aaliyah said firmly. But we have to take risks. We can't continue doing things the old way. It's time to innovate. The room fell silent as the executives processed her words. They had grown used to her clarity and conviction, but the stakes were higher now. If Aaliyah's plan didn't work, it wouldn't just be her job on the line. It would be the company's future. She felt the weight of that responsibility in the pit of her stomach. But she also felt something else, a quiet confidence. She had faced down Adam Stone. She had toppled the giant. And now, the company was hers to guide. Later that evening, as Aaliyah left the office, she received a call from her mother. How are you holding up, sweetheart? Her mother asked, her voice warm and comforting. I'm fine, Mom, Aaliyah said with a sigh, leaning against her car. Just a lot of pressure. But I'm doing what I have to do. You've always been strong, her mother replied. Just remember, you don't have to do it alone. You have people who care about you. Aaliyah smiled, grateful for her mother's words. It was easy to get lost in the grind, to forget that. There were people who supported her. But she couldn't afford to forget that now. The next morning, she stood at the front of the boardroom once more, her hands steady as she laid out the next phase of the company's strategy. The board members, once skeptical, now listened intently, their expressions a mix of respect and admiration. Adam Stone was nowhere to be seen. He had come to terms with his fall from grace. He had watched as Aaliyah took the reins, and while his pride had taken a blow, there was a quiet respect that had started to form in the background. He had underestimated her. He had dismissed her as insignificant, and now she was leading the company forward, with a vision that he could never have imagined. As the meeting concluded, Aaliyah walked out of the boardroom, her head held high. She had not only earned her place in the company, but she had earned the respect of those who once looked down on her. It had been a long journey, but she was just getting started. The following months were a whirlwind for Aaliyah. As the company's financials began to stabilize and even grow under her leadership, the once skeptical board members became her strongest allies. She moved from one success to the next, navigating through complicated decisions, winning over more hearts and minds along the way. The executive suite was no longer a place where she merely worked, it was now her domain. Yet, despite the rapid rise in her career, there was always one question lingering in the back of her mind. Could she truly maintain this level of success? Every decision, every move, felt like it carried the weight of the world. It wasn't the fear of failure that haunted her. It was the knowledge that any misstep could undo everything. As the company hit its quarterly targets, Aaliyah found herself increasingly at odds with the industry's relentless demands. She was constantly challenged to push harder, to grow faster, to innovate beyond what seemed possible. Her mornings were filled with board meetings, her afternoons with strategy sessions. But in the midst of all this, something began to change within her. The drive to succeed, once her greatest strength, started to feel like an overwhelming burden. One late evening, after a particularly grueling meeting, Aaliyah found herself in the office alone, staring at the glowing screen in front of her. The numbers in the spreadsheet seemed endless, the weight of each decision pressing against her chest. She was used to the pressure, but tonight it felt different. It felt suffocating. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling, trying to gather her thoughts. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a text from her mother. "I know it's been tough. Just remember, it's okay to breathe. You don't have to do it all alone." Aaliyah smiled, her mother's words a reminder of something she often forgot, the value of slowing down. The next morning, as she walked into the boardroom for another meeting, she felt a subtle shift within herself. She wasn't the same person who had walked into the room months ago, ready to fight for her place. No, she had already earned that place. Now, it was time to lead with more than just ambition. It was time to lead with conviction. The meeting began with the usual updates and reports, but this time, Aaliyah spoke with a calmness that was new to her. "We've done well," she said, "but I want to ensure that we're not just aiming for growth for the sake of growth. Let's focus on sustainability. Let's focus on doing things the right way, not just the fast way." The board members looked at her with newfound respect. They had seen her rise through the ranks, but now they saw her as more than just a powerful force. She was a leader with purpose. The next few months were a reflection of that shift. Aaliyah's leadership style evolved, moving from reactive to proactive, from driven to balanced. She began to delegate more, trusting her team to take the reins in areas where she once felt the need to control everything. And in doing so, she found a renewed sense of peace. The company continued to grow, but now, it was about more than just numbers. It was about creating something sustainable, something that would last. One afternoon, Aaliyah received a call from Adam Stone. She hadn't heard from him in months. "I wanted to check in," he said, his tone surprisingly neutral. "I've been watching what you're doing, Aaliyah. You've really turned things around. I didn't think you had it in you." Aaliyah was silent for a moment, unsure of what to say. "Thank you," she finally replied, "but I didn't do it alone. I had help." "Still," he said, "you've earned my respect." The call ended shortly after, and Aaliyah sat back in her chair, reflecting on the journey she had taken. She had proven herself to the world, to the board, and even to the person who had once dismissed her. But more importantly, she had proven something to herself, that she could rise above, not just for the sake of success, but to build something meaningful. Her journey wasn't over, but for the first time in a long time, she felt confident in the path ahead. As Aaliyah stood at the window of her office, looking out at the city skyline, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. It had been a year since she had taken the reins of the company, a year since she had turned everything around. The weight of the challenges she faced still lingered in the back of her mind, but now there was a sense of peace, a sense of purpose, that had replaced the constant pressure. The company was thriving, but it wasn't just about the numbers anymore. It was about creating a culture, a legacy, something that would outlast any single individual. She had learned so much in the past year. Leadership wasn't about being the loudest voice in the room or making all the decisions. It was about listening, about trusting those around her, and knowing when to step back and let others lead. She had found strength in vulnerability, courage in humility, and most importantly, she had found her own voice. That morning, as she prepared for another round of meetings, Aaliyah felt a quiet confidence she had never experienced before. She wasn't just the woman who had saved the company anymore. She was the leader who was building something new. When she walked into the boardroom, the familiar faces greeted her with nods of respect. There was a time when she would have been nervous, unsure of herself, but today, she felt grounded. She knew what she had to do. The meeting began as usual, but this time, Aaliyah wasn't just speaking to impress or defend her ideas. She was speaking with a clear vision of where she wanted to take the company next. "We've accomplished a lot," she began, her voice steady. "But we can't stop here. We need to build a foundation that will carry us forward, one that isn't just about profits, but about making a difference in the world. The room was silent, everyone listening intently. Adam Stone, once the person who had dismissed her so easily, now sat back, watching her with a newfound respect. "We have the opportunity to lead in innovation," Aaliyah continued. "But more importantly, we have the chance to set a new standard in corporate responsibility. It's time we change the way people view success." Liam Parker spoke up, his voice filled with agreement. "You're right, Aaliyah. We've been focused on growth, but we haven't truly considered the impact we're having beyond the bottom line. It's time we change that." Aaliyah's eyes met Liam's, a brief moment of connection that spoke volumes. She had earned his trust, and that meant more than any promotion or title. The rest of the meeting was filled with discussions about long-term goals, sustainability, and ways the company could contribute to communities in need. Aaliyah's vision had become the company's vision, and as she looked around the room, she knew she was no longer just leading a business. She was creating a movement. That evening, as she walked out of the office, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother. "I'm so proud of you. But don't forget to take care of yourself, too. You've worked hard, and now it's time to enjoy the journey." Aaliyah smiled, feeling the weight of her mother's words sink in. She had been so focused on the company, on the future, that she had forgotten to slow down. It wasn't just about what she achieved anymore. It was about who she was becoming along the way. Aaliyah had built her success on more than just ambition and strategy. She had built it on purpose, on values that she held dear. And as she looked at the city lights stretching out before her, she knew that this was only the beginning. As Aaliyah sat in her office, reviewing the latest quarter's results, a sense of accomplishment washed over her. The company was thriving, and her vision for a sustainable future was taking shape. She had transformed from an overlooked analyst to the very person driving the company forward. Yet, despite all the progress, something inside her felt unsettled. The weight of responsibility still hung heavy, and she couldn't ignore the pressure to keep proving herself. Every decision she made felt monumental, and with each passing day, she found herself questioning whether she was doing enough. It wasn't about the success anymore. It was about the kind of legacy she wanted to leave behind. One evening, as the office lights dimmed and the city skyline shimmered through the windows, Aaliyah took a deep breath. She had reached a point where it wasn't just about climbing higher. It was about building something that would endure. The shift had been subtle, but profound. She realized that the true test wasn't her ability to succeed in business. It was her ability to remain grounded while doing so. As she closed her laptop, the sound of her phone buzzing interrupted her thoughts. It was Liam Parker. "Aaliyah, are you free for a quick chat?" His tone was casual, but there was an underlying seriousness to it. "Of course," she replied, putting the phone to her ear. "What's going on?" "I've been thinking a lot about the future of the company," Liam began, "and I want to run an idea by you." Aaliyah listened intently as Liam spoke. The idea was bold, expanding the company's reach into emerging markets, focusing on sustainability and technology. But it wasn't just about growth. The vision was to use the company's success to drive change on a global scale, to create a ripple effect that would benefit not just shareholders, but the communities they served. It was exactly the kind of project Aaliyah had always wanted to pursue. "I'm on board," she said without hesitation. "Let's make it happen." The next few weeks were filled with strategy sessions, research, and careful planning. Aaliyah knew that this new venture wouldn't be easy. It would require careful balancing of resources, risk, and innovation. But she was no longer intimidated by challenges. In fact, they fueled her determination. As the project gained momentum, Aaliyah found herself reflecting more on the impact she wanted to have beyond the boardroom. She had fought for success, but now she was fighting for something greater, something that would last long after she was gone. One afternoon, as Aaliyah stepped out of the elevator on the top floor of the building, she was met with a surprising sight. Adam Stone, the man who had once dismissed her, was standing at the far end of the hallway, his back to her. She had expected to see him at some point, but she wasn't sure what to make of it. "Aaliyah," he said, turning to face her. "I wanted to speak with you. It's been a long time." Aaliyah looked at him, her gaze steady but neutral. "I'm listening," she said. Adam sighed, his face showing the wear of someone who had come to terms with his fall from grace. "I've been watching what you've done here," he continued. "You've built something impressive. And I have to admit, I didn't see it coming. Aaliyah nodded, acknowledging the words but not allowing them to linger. I've learned a lot over the years, she said, her voice calm. And I'm grateful for the lessons. Adam's eyes met hers, a flicker of something almost like respect in his gaze. You've earned my respect, Aaliyah, he said quietly. Aaliyah didn't respond right away. She didn't need to. There was no longer a need to prove herself to him or anyone else. She had done it, not just for herself, but for everyone who had been overlooked, underestimated, or written off. She had proven that success wasn't just about climbing the corporate ladder. It was about creating something meaningful, something that could stand the test of time. And as she walked past Adam, heading toward the future, she knew that this was just the beginning of something even bigger. The months passed, and Aaliyah's new vision for the company began to take root. The transition from focusing solely on profits to embracing corporate responsibility was not easy, but it was paying off. The company was making strides in sustainable technology, making headlines for its positive impact on communities, and Aaliyah felt a sense of pride in the work they were doing. She no longer felt the weight of constantly proving herself, but the responsibility of leading a company that was changing the industry weighed heavily on her shoulders. As she sat at her desk late one evening, reviewing reports, her phone buzzed with a message from Liam. We need to talk. It's important. She frowned, reading the message a second time. Liam was a close ally, someone who had always supported her, but there was a certain urgency in his tone that made her pause. Aaliyah dialed his number, her curiosity piqued. What's going on? She asked when he picked up. It's about the expansion project, Liam said, his voice serious. There's a potential risk we hadn't foreseen. A major competitor is moving into the same market, and they have the resources to outpace us. Aaliyah's mind raced as she processed the information. How bad is it? She asked. It could be significant, Liam replied. We're ahead for now, but we can't afford to lose momentum. We need to act fast. Aaliyah leaned back in her chair, taking a deep breath. This was the kind of challenge she had anticipated. It wasn't enough to just build something. It was about sustaining it, adapting, and outsmarting the competition. I'll handle it, she said with determination. Let's set up a meeting with the team tomorrow. We need a strategy to counter this. The following morning, Aaliyah entered the boardroom with a clear sense of purpose. She had already started formulating a plan. As the team gathered around the table, Aaliyah laid out the situation. We've been given a gift, she began, her voice calm but confident. This competitor moving in is a threat, but it's also an opportunity. We know the market better than they do, and we have the advantage of established trust. She paused, making sure every person in the room was paying attention. Our task is simple. We need to move faster, be more innovative, and stay ahead. It's time to push the boundaries of what we've already done. The room was silent for a moment before Liam spoke up. How do we do that? What's the first step? Aaliyah smiled. We expand our partnerships with local communities and focus on a product that no one else has, one that aligns with our values. We have the infrastructure, the knowledge, and the network. What we need now is to make bold moves before they can catch up. The team nodded, each person acknowledging the weight of the decision but also the opportunity it presented. Aaliyah had always known that in business, there would be times of doubt, of setbacks, but it was in those moments that true leadership emerged. She wasn't just leading the company anymore. She was shaping its future. As the meeting ended and the team dispersed, Aaliyah remained in the room for a moment, reflecting on the journey ahead. She had spent so much time fighting to get to this point, but now she realized it wasn't just about competing. It was about creating something that could truly make a difference, something that would stand the test of time. Walking out of the boardroom, Aaliyah felt a new sense of purpose. She wasn't simply going to survive this competition. She was going to redefine it. She wasn't just a leader now, she was a change maker. The weeks that followed were filled with intense focus and determination. Aaliyah's strategy to outpace the competition was not just working, it was transforming the company. The partnerships with local communities took off, with new products that highlighted both innovation and the company's commitment to sustainability. As the business expanded into new markets, Aaliyah's vision for a responsible, future-driven company became more tangible. Every decision she made seemed to align with the greater purpose she had set for herself and the company. Her leadership had evolved into something deeper, more reflective of who she truly was. The company wasn't just thriving, It was beginning to set trends, to redefine what success looked like in an industry where profit and ethics often seemed at odds. Aaliyah was no longer seen as just a successful CEO, she was a trailblazer. One afternoon, as she prepared for a major presentation to international investors, her phone rang. It was a number she hadn't expected to hear from, Adam Stone. "Aaliyah," he said when she answered, "I just wanted to reach out. I've been hearing a lot of buzz about what you're doing, and I have to say, I'm impressed. You've done more than I could have ever imagined." Aaliyah took a deep breath, the phone still pressed to her ear. Adam had been a huge part of her journey, both a mentor and a source of immense challenge. To hear him acknowledge her now, after all the tension and conflict, was a moment of growth for both of them. "Thank you, Adam," she replied, her voice calm but full of gratitude. "I couldn't have gotten here without the experiences we went through together." There was a pause on the other end of the line, then Adam spoke again. "I was wrong about you. I see that now. You've built something I couldn't have imagined. And I think, maybe, that's why you were meant to take this company further than I ever could." Aaliyah's eyes lingered on the window in front of her, the city skyline stretching far beyond the glass. In that moment, she realized how far she had come, not just in the company, but within herself. She had learned from every failure, every rejection, and every challenge she faced. She had grown stronger, wiser, and more determined. "I appreciate that," she said, her voice soft but sure. "But what matters now is what we build together moving forward. There's a lot of work still to be done, and I'm ready for it." The conversation ended with a mutual understanding between the two of them. Aaliyah had not only earned Adam's respect, but had also helped him recognize that leadership was not about dominance. It was about vision, responsibility, and adapting to change.